Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep to stories slower than time itself. Somewhere outside the gates before the crowd, a disciple wakes. The night is a pale memory, still folded around the city walls. In a stone room, Paul sits quietly, alone but not lonesome, not anymore. The day is not waiting for him, and he is not waiting for it. Candlelight hovers, soft and gold and barely moving, pressed up to the gray hush. He does not rush for dawn. The cell is more shadow than space, not cruel, not warm, only present like bread before breakfast. Somewhere the dust holds yesterday's footprints. Cloth wrapped around his shoulders, Paul sits with knees drawn up, hands empty. He could fill them with longing or let them rest, so he lets them rest. There is water in a clay cup, catching slow ripples of yellow light. He sips, and for a moment there is nothing to do but be a person drinking in the first hour of silence. No one calls his name. No bread arrives yet. Walls keep the world away, but not God, not really. Paul watches the shape of candle shadow and listens to the breath inside the stone. Nothing asks of him. The sky is hidden but not gone. Somewhere footsteps echo far below. He listens, but only because there is nothing more urgent. The air is just cool enough to feel real. His blanket scratches the bend of his elbow. Letters sleep inside a leather pouch unread. He lets them be. Time wanders with him slowly and does not complain. In other rooms someone coughs. Distant, timeless, like wind through linen hanging on a line. For Paul, this is the day opening, as plain as bread on a palm, as quiet as a child not yet awake. Already he feels no urgency to change the story. The world moves outside the window slit, dull noises, cart wheels, a low bell not meant for him. He sets his feet on the stone, feeling every thread of the cold. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Candle wax settles into old grooves. Paul blinks, thinks he could drift for hours, nothing more urgent than the next breath. There is time for everything and nothing must be done. He smooths his blanket, listens to the gentle crackle of the wick. Each breath another silent beginning. If you are tired, that's holy too. The story can wait with you, there is nowhere else to be. The morning unspools slowly, just for the sake of slow. Paul lets the world arrive around him, stitch by stitch, with no need for hurry. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. You don't need to stay awake for the story, it will stay awake for you. He woke before the light changed. The stones beneath him were cold, smoother in some places from feet and blankets wearing them down over time. A coarse mat, folded thin, made little difference, but he noticed the difference anyway, as though comfort was made of smaller things than comfort. The first sound he always heard was the water, a slow drip near the corner. Sometimes it landed in a shallow bowl, sometimes just on the floor. It made a clock out of nothing meaningful. He counted a few drops, then lost count, then found the sound again, softer, behind his breath. Above him, feet moved like a memory trying to be silent. Guards never hurried in the morning. Their sandals were worn, too. He knew because once he had mended a strap in exchange for a piece of flatbread. They had not spoken, just a nod at dusk. The air held last night's dampness, not sharp, not sweet, just the soft scent of stone, old bread, and wool. Breathing was slow work here, sometimes bitter, sometimes something close to safe. Paul lay still, the quiet filling even the spaces inside him. He didn't reach for anything, not right away, just felt the weight of the gray blanket covering his legs. Simple, serviceable, someone else's name stitched, faded now. He often wondered whose. Light grew very softly. It did not come all at once, but in bands on the wall, a little gold hiding in the cracks, bumping against the shadows. He could almost measure the hour by how many stones were touched by sun. Today felt like any other, an opening breath, not a door. He sat up slowly, his back stretching, a quiet ache reminding him he was still alive. He touched his knee where the chill settled overnight and waited for the warmth to return. He folded his outer tunic with careful hands. The cloth was rough, tinted from a dozen washings, patched once at the shoulder. Fold, smooth, turn, fold again. In these small actions was a kind of shelter. He asked for nothing and still felt full. A guard's keys knocked against the bars. The rhythm was gentle, not hurried. Even in captivity, they did not rush the day. Paul pressed his palm against the wall behind him, cool, unyielding, trustworthy in its way. He listened as the water found its bowl again. He closed his eyes for just a moment as if blessing the silence. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Let this moment stretch. Some days the world begins hungry for noise, but not this morning. This morning is slow enough for peace to enter, slow enough for breath to be enough. Nothing happening, and yet everything holds you gently here. You find yourself in the hushed corner of a day, the slant of light fading on clay walls. Paul sits with his shoulders loose, legs folded uneven on the stone floor. There's no rush at this table, only a single piece of flat bread, plain, brown, and a cup of water left from the well. The clay is cold. It steadies his hand. He pulls off a piece of bread with 2 fingers. The crust crumbles as he pinches it, leaving dry, soft flecks on his thumb. He gathers them up quietly before they fall. The silence inside the room is wide enough for every small sound, the soft, rough scrape as teeth crack bread, the hush of breath between chews. Nothing else moves. He lets each mouthful rest against his tongue a moment longer than he needs, waiting for the taste. Flour, ash, a tiny sting of salt, chewing is slow. The bread settles heavy, not unpleasant, in his belly. Sometimes he thinks of dinners past, crowded and bright, laughter tumbling over plates, wine and oil pooling on the cloth. It's quieter here. Just the sound of biting and swallowing, the hush so deep he can hear his own hunger. Let this moment stretch. His hand runs along the surface of the table, rough and splintered, worn by years of meals like this. He presses his palm flat. No one's here to notice. That's all right. Some meals go quietly like prayers under breath. He looks at the cup. There's a smudge by the rim, dried in the shape of a thumbprint. He tips the water close, not in haste. It's cool, almost sweet from the well, and the first sip is always a surprise. He holds it in his mouth an extra second, his tongue remembering the dust of the road, the dry places in his throat. Then he swallows. If he tries, he can hear the sound carry to the wall and back, gentle as a stone dropped into earth. Even this silence is holy. The bread is dry, but he eats every crumb, feeling each one collect at the edge of his lips. Sometimes he finds them stuck beneath his nail. He presses his tongue to the spot and waits for it to soften. The smallness of this act, the careful holding of food, the secret crumbs, is enough. He thinks quietly of how much he has needed and how much has come. No one sees him, thank God. Yet he does. Between bites, between breaths, he tears another piece, smaller this time. The bread bends, not breaks, brittle but warm from the sun before. The way it folds reminds him of an old blanket left too long in the sun. He chews, slow and wide-eyed. The sound is only in his head. Let it echo softly and fade. His fingers gather the final flakes in his palm. He licks them, pressing each bit to the roof of his mouth. The taste lingers, just bread, nothing more. But that is enough. Every mouthful matters here. The night listens with you. He looks at the water again. The cup is heavier now, less full. Every sip empties it gently, just a little at a time. He notices the coolness sliding down, how his stomach settles, softer with each swallow. Sometimes he forgets how good water tastes when he is alone. He nods, as if agreeing with a secret. He draws in a slow breath and lets it out the same way, one long exhale, quiet as dusk falling into stone. Let this night hold you. His body shifts. He wipes the crumbs from his lap, sweeping them into a neat pile by the table's edge. There is comfort in this. He can still smell flour on his hands, the memory of the field humming through skin and bone. A single crumb clings to his wrist. He lets it stay. One cup, one loaf, nothing left to knead. He sits and listens as the room quiets further. The sun moves, shifting gold to blue. He eats as if time is endless, and maybe tonight it is. Each bite is an invitation to wait, to linger, to find fullness in the slow unraveling of evening. The hunger in his belly softens. The ache in his heart lessens. There's no hurry. The world outside can wait. Here he chews, he swallows, he breathes. He is fed not by the bread only, but by the gift of being slow, the quiet of being known, even in solitude. He asked for nothing and still felt full. He sits back, letting his hands dangle at his sides, palms up. The chill of the clay seeps into his skin. The cup, almost empty, stands sentry by the loaf's last corner. He listens to his own body, a slow heartbeat, a soft yawn kept behind his teeth. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard somewhere. A bird calls, muffled by the thick walls. Paul closes his eyes, considers the weight of sleep coming for him. The meal behind him is finished. Its memory will settle in his bones and carry him a little further toward tomorrow, and the quiet promise that there will be bread and water again. Let your mind go soft now. Let this moment stretch, longer still, until it becomes the night itself, wide and gentle, holding you as you drift. No need to stay awake. The story will stay awake for you. There are mornings when the air is colder than bread left out overnight, and ink hangs thick, slow, resting in its shallow dish, almost unmoved by time. Paul sits at the table. His back is straight as if it remembers to wait. The parchment waits too, curling ever so slightly at the edges, not quite flat, not quite eager. He draws the quill from its place, a thin feather, almost weightless, borrowed from a friend's writing box. Its point moves with the quiet gravity of things that matter but are easily missed. Around him, the day has not yet chosen its shape. There's the soft thump of sandals 2 rooms away, some gentle patter of water being poured where someone is rinsing lentils. A window opens, letting in the faintest gold of early sun, and carrying the distant sound of a rooster already tired. He waits. Before the first word, there is always a pause, longer than polite, brief enough to forget. Paul listens, as if hoping to overhear his own heart arranging the opening line. The quill dips and there is that sound, scratch a breath, scratch an open palm pressing paper flat, the quiet tap of fingernail against the wood, as if confirming the desk is still solid, that it can hold these words even if he cannot. Every so often he lifts his head. Someone in the courtyard coughs. Outside, a donkey shakes off sleep, the harness rattling. Inside, linen is folded corner to corner. There is comfort in methodical things. Let this moment stretch. No one hurries here. Even the ink waits, dark and patient. Paul forms each letter with measured care, as if laying small stones on a riverbed. Syllables slip from thought to parchment, pausing when meaning catches, a syllable left hanging, a word reconsidered. He does not fear silence. Even this is holy. Sometimes the scratch-thin lines of the quill halt in mid-sentence. He listens beyond himself. There's a sparrow's rustle in the eaves, the low hum of conversation far off, where others speak of figs, prices, weather. These things pass through the open room, brushing against the stillness without unsettling it. He stirs the ink. It reflects the morning, small shards of windowlight shifting as the tip swirls. A deep contentment, almost unseen, rests here. He is not writing to correct, but to comfort. The steady rhythm returns. Scratch you pause, scratch you from the wrist, up the arm, across years and distance, into a future that will not remember the chair or the table, only the care. Let the quiet fill you too. Beside the table, linen stacks grow, fold and turn. An old jug waits to be washed. Sand drifts in from the doorway. The world is not loud here, but it is never silent. A wind passes, nudges a corner of the parchment, and Paul smooths it gently. Sometimes a phrase lingers, touching down lightly like a hand on a sleeve. He writes it, then waits. He does not rush to the end. Sometimes the message is in the pause, not the sentence. Let your breath slow, a lamp flickers, though the day brightens. None of this is urgent. Stillness is a kind of prayer, and Paul offers it in the form of careful words, spaced apart like stars at the edge of dawn. He asks nothing of those who will read, and still the feeling is full. His presence travels in the lines, not to instruct, but to arrive unannounced, like warm bread passed quietly to an open hand. The scratching of ink here in this hour before noise is not a miracle, but it is what holds the morning in its rhythm. To witness is enough. To wait and watch gentle words form is to belong. The night listens with you. The sun had risen high, soft and stubborn, pressing even the shadows flat against the warm stones. I'd been sweeping dust from a thin windowsill all morning. The broom moved slow, not because there was much to sweep, but because there was nothing to hurry for. Paul's cell sits on the corner, silent except for the hollow tapping of folded cloth or the rustle of sandals when a guard comes or goes. At midday the quiet deepens. Even the air seems to wait, pressing slow steps into the dirt. The changing of the guard happens the same way it always does. One man lifting his helmet, rubbing an old ache in his neck and nodding, barely. The new arrival stands there a moment, not saying a word. He leans against the wall opposite the bars, arms folded, eyes somewhere halfway between watchfulness and daydream. Paul glances up, just for a breath, his face unreadable, except for a ripple of smile at the corner of his mouth. Not really for anyone, maybe just for the morning. He returns to folding his wool blanket, slow, careful, as if the wool itself has memorized his touch. I can hear the scrape of his hand smoothing away the creases. Let this moment stretch. It takes almost nothing to fill an hour when you aren't waiting for anything. I brush a crumb from the ledge. The guard clears his throat softly. The world outside, vendors with honey cakes, the braying of a stubborn goat in the far lane, doesn't break the hush. Even this silence is holy. Inside the cell, I can almost feel the quiet wrapping around both men. Paul kneeling now, tying his sandal by the wall. The new guard shifting his weight, eyes drawn to a pattern in the floor. A breeze lifts the corner of my tunic, then dies away. Breath in, slow. No prayers rise above a whisper. No conversations start or finish. Even so, peace sits in the space between them, a soft and weightless thing. The day settles its shoulders. I lean into the sill, letting time move past. Sandaled feet shuffle in the corridor, someone's late meal, someone's errand, but neither guard nor prisoner notice much. They share only the shape of presence, and the small, safe room that boredom builds around tired hearts. The night listens with you, Paul sighs, so gently I almost miss it. The guard tilts his head, not unfriendly, just there. Minutes pass, quiet as folded linen. Nobody fills the silence, but it feels filled all the same. You don't have to stay awake for this hour. Let your own breath settle, safe as a leaf on water. He asked for nothing and still felt full. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. And for that time between bells, they belonged to the hush, nothing left to fix, nothing to want, only the blessing of breathing in company. Let this moment linger as long as you need, until the next ordinary miracle crosses the stone threshold, and you are quietly carried forward with it. Paul's memory walk begins in the hush just after dawn. He sits at the edge of a small room, legs folded beneath him, running a thumb along the seam of his sandal. Around him, the house is quiet, a child's murmur behind a curtain, pots cooling from the night's meal. He remembers rising like this before, when the road waited for his feet and each breath tasted of bread and air. The walls glow with a dull promise, sunlight filtering beneath the door. Paul lets his body rest against the wall, letting the room hold him. He doesn't hurry to stand, even memory moves slowly here. Beyond the door, someone sweeps a yard. He listens, lets the sound settle. His hand stays on his sandal. Let this morning stretch. It is enough to remember being part of the world, even when the world is quiet and still. God is near when the room is empty. Too, the corridor settles deeper into its own cool hush, the heat of afternoon thinned enough to wake a small breeze. Someone rinses lentil bowls near the door. The sun lingers behind old stone, painting shallow light on the floor. You can hear quiet, and somewhere in it, a voice not here, not close, but lost down the hall. Soft, like steam escaping from a cracked jar. A tune maybe, or just the sound a heart makes when it's alone and unafraid. No one asks who it is. No one moves to listen exactly. Paul is folding a bit of linen slowly, careful not to wrinkle it. The corners keep slipping from his fingers. There's the distant voice, again, threading just through the edges of the day, not meant for him, but not closed to him either. He does not recognize the song. It is not from the hymns his mother sang in shadows or the psalms he mouthed beside the fire. It is older, or perhaps so new it has no words yet. He lets it rest inside his chest, warm and lonesome. Work drifts through the room in small, unfinished circles. Water is poured, spilled, wiped away. Someone sighs, not out of sorrow or relief, just the exhale of waiting for evening. Let this moment stretch. Paul leans back against the wall, eyes soft, watching the motion of sunlight on his feet. The faint voice hovers, neither asking nor answering, simply filling space that would otherwise feel empty. He wonders if praise can find you even when you are not waiting for it or needing it. No one notices him mouthing a prayer, small and unheard, sending it out into the corridor's gentle current. He asks for nothing and still feels full. The bowl beside him is clean. The cloth is smooth, set aside. A neighbor passes by, murmuring a greeting, their steps trailing the tail of the song. No one knows who it is. No one needs to. The voice continues as if faith, too, can echo through stone and settle beside the ordinary. Even this silence is holy. Paul stays where he is, not rising, not reaching. If his thoughts linger, they do so in peace, letting the unknown praise circle around him, soft and unfinished. It's enough to listen. The corridor quiets further as the day fades. Somewhere the old stones remember every step, every song, every prayer mouthed into the evening hush. Paul closes his eyes and lets the distant voice drift, half heard, lifted by hidden hands on its way to God. The night listens with you, the afternoon was quiet as linen. I sat by the window, pressing my hand to the cool edge of the table, watching the dust turn in the pale sun. There are days when the world feels so slow you can nearly hear the silence folding in on itself. Paul sat where the shadows pooled by the door, his cup untouched. The breeze curled under the door, not sharp, just there, like a sleeping thought. It nudged a corner of parchment and lifted a loose thread from my sleeve. Everything moved in small ways. His writing was always careful. I'd seen him mend a sandal with the same patience, slow, gentle seams, never pulling too hard. Now his fingers held the reed, steady above the last line he'd written. Sometimes he read aloud, never expecting anyone to listen, but the sound filled the room anyway. Words about grace and kindness settled quietly into the air like steam from cooling bread. He paused. Then he spoke a phrase again, softer this time. I noticed the way he looked at the ink, as if it could grow into something truer if he waited. The wind brushed my ankles. Parchment shifted just a finger's width. He crossed out a sentence, not hurried, no sharp lines, just a slow curved motion as if blessing the words that were leaving. Paul sighed once, then began again. He wrote slower, letting the silence inside each letter. I thought about how he never rushed, even when the others sent for him, even when the street outside lifted with voices and sandals scraping stone. He asked for nothing and still felt full. I folded a piece of cloth and set it on the shelf. There was nothing to finish, nothing to chase. Sunlight bent across the floor. It crept over Paul's feet, gold and worn. He whispered another line, half to himself, and I imagined a listener somewhere far away who might someday read these words in their own quiet room. Let this moment stretch. The wind changed. It carried the scent of pressed olives from next door. Paul looked up once, smiled at no one, then bent over the letter again. His jaw moved the way someone's does when they're remembering a prayer. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. I crossed to the window, brushing my hand along the sill. The wood was cool with shade, dust gathering in the corners. I thought how everything finds its place if you go slow enough. Paul dipped his reed, tapped it gently, and let the next sentence find him. He paused to reread. Not every phrase was perfect. Some he let stand crooked and earnest. Even this silence is holy outside. The shadows grew long. Someone called for figs in the lane. Someone else sang, not loudly. Paul finished his line, set the reed aside. He pressed the edge of the parchment, making sure it lay flat. Sometimes a letter needs rest, he'd once said, as if words too could sleep before they journeyed. The night listens with you, and the breeze carried on, curling around our ankles until dusk, when the oil lamp was lit and every word felt washed in quiet reverence. No one hurried. The day folded into evening without asking for more. The light in this room, it changes so softly, most would never notice. It's only the slow-breathing ones who see how shadows lengthen at the end of the day. I learned to notice. Here in the stillness, where every passing minute feels like an echo in a well, I have nothing but time and the shifting shapes on the wall. This hour, it leans into the lull between day and dusk. Lamps remain unlit. The stones underfoot stay warm, holding onto the sun's memory. I see Paul across the room, a silhouette, not quite moving, his back gently resting against the wall where shadow climbs. No scroll in his hands, no words on his lips. Just watching, letting the narrow beam draw long gray lines beside his feet. Out the high window, I catch slivers of brightness, growing honey gold as the sun lowers. The light slides through the wooden slats, banding the air with slow ladders. Each bar of it gentle as breath, sweeping over bare floor and resting on a fold of linen. I watch the dust, each speck adrift, caught in that soft, wishing sunlight. It feels like a place set aside, unrushed, untouched. You can hear the quiet sometimes. Someone shifts on the straw mattress. A muffled cough in the corner fades again. In the warmth, even the sparrows outside have fallen silent. Only a sigh of breeze flutters the edges of Paul's robe. Even this silence is holy. Paul has learned to wait better than any of us. When the shadows move, he does not chase the day. His eyes close for a moment, open again. Maybe he counts the stripes of light, maybe he prays. No one knows. He asks for nothing and still feels full. I take cloth from the corner, rough, well-worn, pressed yesterday between palms damp with water jar. Folding is slower here, as if the cloth is thick with time. Each creased line smooths itself, no need to hurry. I breathe with the dust and the settling sun, letting this task stretch, drawn out, safe. There is no voice in the corridor, no footsteps behind the heavy door. Only us, the light, the hush, and the day quietly slipping away. Sometimes the memory of being outside returns, when I would run at this hour, chasing after goats or carrying figs from the stall. Now the pace is softer. My hands move like the growing shadow, quieter, almost invisible. I trace the windowsill with my fingertip, gathering the day's dust. A pattern forms and fades in the pale band of sunlight. Time pools on the stone, cool here, golden there. It makes no claim on me, it just is. Now and then Paul hums a tune barely there. I listen. It ripples through the calm, then dissolves, no more than a breath. I feel myself settling, shoulders uncoiling as the room relaxes into the softer half of evening. No more bright edges, only blurred shapes, light unwinding toward blue. Let this moment stretch, longer than a thought, gentler than memory. Every small gesture, folding linen, smoothing sheets, closing eyes, becomes weightless. I sit beside Paul now, not to ask or to tell, just to share the silence. We watch the shadows merge, silk black lines reaching further with each heartbeat, breathing deeper, slower, filling the chest with air that smells of straw, stone, and distant spice from the kitchens below. The night listens with you. If I look closely, the old worries soften. The day that rushed so loudly now quiets in the corner, where the longest shadow meets the wall. I let my hands rest in my lap, palms open, empty of striving. Paul has done this for hours, maybe his whole life, waiting without hurry, letting peace outgrow impatience. I watch him and learn just by watching. Outside, beyond the walls, life continues. Someone calls for water, a gate swings and the sound is gentle, far away. The light dims gradually. My breathing widens, in and out with each new length of shade. I let my eyelids grow heavy, the deepening dark consoling. Even this, watching nothing change but the color of the wall, becomes enough. The Lord moves slowly, too. You don't need to stay awake for the story, it will stay awake for you. Even now, as the shadows grow and the little gold of day is gathered up, let every line feel like silence made holy. Let the stillness do the work. I wake with the bell, not sunrise, not a rooster, just a bowl struck with a spoon by the gate. The sound is softer now. Less need for news, fewer letters to send. He is writing, though the page is almost filled. I cross the room, careful not to bump the oil lamp. My feet know this swept floor well. There is nothing left to add. We both know it, no words come from me. I set down a folded cloth, clean, still warm from the sun. He nods. He runs his thumb along the edge of the parchment, testing the seam. Paul does not read what he's written. The ink is dry. None of us keep bees, but the letter smells faintly of wax. The candle, maybe, or maybe the paper itself. I straighten the cushion behind his shoulders. He presses the corners of the parchment together, then smooths them beneath his palm. Even breathing feels quiet tonight, like the house is only half awake. I'm drawn to the window, to the narrow lane that slips in from the square. Children chalk pictures there, just out of reach of the lamp's tired glow. He does not stand, does not sigh, does not send me for any messenger. We are in no hurry. There is no more to prove. Let this moment stretch. The letter will wait. The morning will wait. The hunger for newness will wait. This is a different kind of ending, a folding, not a closing. The corners match not perfectly, but close enough for rest. I set the cup beside him. He runs his hand over the surface, thinking maybe, or just feeling the day slip into something softer. It is finished, but the finishing is quiet. The lamp burns low. The neighbors stir bread dough next door. Someone waters a pot of mint. The courtyard gate scrapes in the wind, slow and small, as if the world wants to remind us. Even silence is a kind of company. Let the night listen with you, nothing more to do. The letter sits folded. Paul leans his head back against the cool wall. My own breath drifts into the space between us, loose, unhurried, carrying the comfort of things left unsaid. No celebrations, no applause. No need to rush the ink across another empty page. It is enough to finish, and let it be. It's almost dusk, the color of barley tea in a cup. There's just enough quiet to hear the sheep beyond the wall, nothing urgent, just their slow chewing and the small, dull chime of their bells. Paul stands near the table where he left his lamp. The clay is cool to his fingers, the shape familiar from every night before, round, a little lopsided in the place where the base meets the edge. He leans in, listening to the hush that settles when the world gets sleepy. Even the air seems heavier, thick with the day's fading light. He tips the oil jar slowly so the new oil doesn't spill over the lip. It sounds like a sigh, the softest glug, the way olive oil always does. As it pours, the scent rises, just a breath of green, something ancient and tender in it. Oil remembers gardens Paul never saw. He dips the wooden stick, not a matchstick, but worn from the times he's used it. There is a pause, the hush of waiting. When he touches the wick, the lamp replies with the gentlest sound, a muffled pop, the quietest answer. The flame licks up, gold and honest, and at first it wobbles as if even fire needs to settle. Now the room glows at the edges. Light curls against the stone, feathering into blue shadow. He sits and lets his hands rest on his knees, palms up, fingers sore from folding and carrying, but there's nothing more to fold tonight. The lamp stirs a shape on the wall, stretching and shrinking, never the same shape twice. Somewhere, someone is probably still talking, laughter skipping over the rooftops. Here, there is only the lamp, and Paul breathing in the sweet oil, the faint salt of his own skin, the soft earth smell of worn sandals left at the door. Even the dust at his feet seems to circle up and rest a while. He lets his eyes grow heavy. No one expects anything now. The lamp won't burn away the darkness. It only marks a small place inside it, nothing heroic, not a signal, just belonging. Let this moment stretch. You don't have to be anywhere but here for now. The wick settles, making that tiny whisper, almost lost but not quite, like someone remembering a song from childhood, humming it too slow to bother with the tune. Paul thinks of the hands who shaped this lamp, pressed their thumb along the rim. He imagines they weren't in a rush either. What was the hurry? Evening is patient. The wall glows gold where the flame leans. The rest of the room stays unchanged. Baskets in the corner, folded cloth on a shelf. The faint lines drawn by broom bristles this morning. Even the flies seem to have given up for tonight. He notices his breathing, softer than the fire. Stillness gathers as if the lamp's small light invites the night to listen in. There's nothing clever waiting, a silence with no plan. The night listens with you, and the lamp holds its slow breath. Let yourself slow, too. Even this quiet is holy. Paul presses his thumb to the edge of the table, feeling the clay's coolness, the roughness of grain caught under his nail. It's nothing. It's everything. His shoulder aches from where he carried water. That ache is allowed here. It shares the room with the lamp, with the gentle scent of warmed oil. There's no hurry to lay it down. He watches as the flame pulls itself tall, then shies away again, sunk low. There's a soft, tedious thrill in watching something so small work so hard to be gentle. Some nights Paul almost forgets to refill the oil, but the lamp never asks for more than he can give. He asked for nothing, and still felt full. He moves his foot, drags it lightly along the cool stone. The sound, barely a whisper. His eyes slip closed for long moments, open again without hurry. The oil's scent seems sweeter when he isn't thinking, when he's remembering the days he wasn't sure how to rest, and how even then the lamp waited, its work unimportant to everyone but him. He sighs, nothing moves. The world is content to wait. The lamp gives what it gives, just enough to hold off the cold, to let Paul see his own hands, laced together, empty and unworried. Some nights there's a moth that dares the flame, but not tonight. Even the creatures that flit and dart have chosen to be still. Paul lets his head fall forward just for a moment, and the lamp blurs behind his lashes like a coin wrapped in honey. Even in the dullness, something sacred grows. Holy boredom, sacred silence. Safe, you can rest now. The room is small and all of it is enough. He listens, doesn't strain, just lets the sounds find him if they want. There's only the lamp, the lantern pause between each heartbeat, the way light gets tired and fades into the folds of midnight. Let this stillness do the work. Let emptiness feel gentle again. Nothing here is wasted. The lamp burns not out of duty, but to keep a space where even longing can pause and catch its breath. He lets his hand drift, fingers trailing the rim of his robe. The fabric hums against his skin, a slow, heavy comfort. The air is full of old stories, but none of them need telling tonight. Everything worth finding is hidden inside the soft flicker and the sweeter scent. The lamp offers no answer. It just stays awake beside him. You don't need to stay awake for the story. It will stay awake for you. In the morning, he'll trim the wick, pour more oil. He knows the way lit rooms look when the first bird calls, gray and gentle. The lamp nearly emptied but not yet gone. There's a trust inside this waiting. The fire asks nothing more than this: stay a while. Let the light linger. Let your worries fall like dust, unnoticed on the floor. You are allowed to rest here. The night holds its promise while the lamp glows, and even Paul, with nothing left to do, is enough. The candle has nearly burned itself out. One quiet corner, all linen and shadows. Paul lowers himself onto the mat, not rushed. There's nothing left tonight that asks to be done. Folded cloth rests beside him, still warm from his hands. The air is calm and full of a silence that barely moves, just the faint, patient noise of his own breathing. He pulls the covering up slowly, soft over his shoulders, then settles in, as if laying down was the last gentle thing left to do. Somewhere outside, a dog yawns. The sky in the